Hello, everybody. This is Bill for the Sit Rep Podcast, and you're joining us for our holidays show. As we go into the end of 2021, we'll be talking a little bit about some project updates and a little bit of news and just general hobbying in the world of war games. So please stand by as you listen to myself and Jim talk about everything and anything related to wargaming. In 3, 2, 1.
You are listening to the Sitrep Podcast, your source for everything related to historical wargaming. Whether you are looking for the latest wargaming news, reviews, painting tutorials, or playthroughs, you will hear about it right here. So grab your favorite beverage or brush and let's hit it.
Welcome, everybody, to the final Sit Rep Podcast episode of Season 6 and 2021. It's not to say there won't be other productions until the end of the year, but this is the final podcast of the year. And to throw it back to OG style, we're going back to 2 of the original members of the podcast. So it's myself, Bill, Sit Rep 6, and our historical editor guru, Mr. Big Jim Oriskany. Jim, how are you, sir?
Good morning, everyone, and happy holidays.
Yes.
How is everyone doing?
A very good happy holidays to everybody out there. So the other 2 members of the crew are out and about doing physical work and computer stuff. And so Jim and I are going to close out this season and this year and talk about a lot of different projects. There's some big announcements to be made, big ones. So I can't hold back. But first, we got to traditionally show or talk about what we're doing hobby-wise. Jim, would you like to start and bring us in?
All right. So it's been a very busy week, actually a couple of weeks. Starting off with, holy crap, man. I feel like I have calluses on my hands from, swinging a hammer. A lot of construction, a lot of building. So we've seen some of our streams that we have featured recently about, building modern buildings, 20 millimeter from scratch. It's not quite that same project. I've gone over and started on 18th century American colonial buildings for use in the American Civil War. Mm-hmm. As some people may know, I've been getting ready to run a anniversary game of the Battle of Trenton, 26th December, 1776. The thing about the Battle of Trenton is Trenton is a town. And towns have buildings. I wasn't really aware of that. There are these things in towns called buildings. And I didn't really have any, at least not in the right scale. So some of my earlier American Revolution stuff, tables and videos and so on, they've kind of gotten away with it. I've got some 15 millimeter buildings for a farmhouse or a homestead, and you kind of put it in the background and nobody really notices. Or maybe they have, and they just have been polite enough not to say anything. But here, they hid the Hessians while they were still in their barracks, and their barracks were in the town. So it's kind of a street fight. I needed a lot of buildings. I think I've built 22, 25, something like that, 20 millimeter buildings, all from scratch, including 2 churches in the last, 10 to 12 days or something. So, and we have company coming later tonight. So the dining room is a wreck. It has to go from terrain factory workshop back to, Christmas dinner with guests, status in the next 6 hours. Yep. So there's a Casa Oriskany is in is like DEFCON 2 at the moment. So that's been fun. I think I finally got it all done. Now I just have to put a wash on my Hessians. I have 72 20 millimeter Hessians. They're all painted. They've been painted for 5 years. Half painted, I should say, because they don't have any wash on them. So before I put them back on camera, I'm going to go ahead and finally finish them after 5 years. They're finally going to get a chance to get some, to get a little bit of extra work put to them.
Nice.
So that was fun. We also had our first time, or at least our first time in a rather great while, our first piece of guest content.
Yeah.
Our friend Piotr. He's Yavasa, as you may know him in the community. He's got his own blog. He's got, he's a big community member back from the old Beast of War days, way back in the day. Does a lot of sci-fi as well as historical and military and stuff like that. But he recorded a demo game of Close Combat Cross of Iron. An old, not that old, not as old as my computer games, so not that bad. But kind of a legacy computer tactical war game. It's great. It's actually doing pretty well, especially for Wednesday content. Our Wednesday content is usually a little, it doesn't do as well as our Sunday or our Saturday content.
Right.
But his is actually doing pretty well.
No, really well.
I was very happy. Yeah, that's great. Picked us up a couple subscribers. It was over 100 within a smidge over, at least on YouTube, within like the first 24 to 30 hours, something like that. So, yeah, definitely appreciate that. And it seems that the community appreciates that, so we may wind up doing some more of that in the future. I mean, if Piotr is agreeable. He said he has said and that he's agreeable to it, so we may see some more of that.
Oh, yeah, we definitely need to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're also going to experiment to see how we can do it, pretty much a reverse of what we normally do on our Sunday games, where I play. That way, there's more than one person talking.
Yeah.
There's me and him, and he's like, controlling the screen, and we're recording his screen.
Yep.
Instead of vice versa.
There you go. Yeah, that's awesome. I really enjoyed it. It was nice to see a fresh, quote unquote, face to programming, and it just shows to anybody out there listening that if you have a project that you are passionate about or really want to get in front of a camera, computer, whatever you want to call it, you are more than welcome. We can work with you on that. And he did a really great job. I mean, to me, it seemed very natural. I mean, there was no real awkwardness. Like, how sometimes when people know that they're, presenting in front of a large audience, they kind of get hesitant or a little awkwardness. He did a great job, and it was really enjoyable, and the subject matter was great. So big shout out to him.
Absolutely. He's been on the Sit Rep podcast before. He's been in some of my Panzer Leader games. We did our 80th commemoration of the invasion of Poland, which is especially pretty cool because he comes from Poland.
Yep.
So yeah, for the 80th anniversary of the 1939 invasion, infamously that kind of kicks off the European part of World War II. He was very keen to do that in Panzer Leader. So, I mean, people on the podcast will recognize his voice. He's been around before, but this was all him.
Yes.
Normally it's him appearing in one of my streams and, okay, we play a game and I kind of record it or stream it or whatever. But this was all him. He just sent us a video.
Yep.
I mean, we did like some sound balancing and like some credit slides and stuff like that, but that content is all his for sure.
Yes,
So,
it is.
Yeah, definitely great.
Nice work. So nice work to Piotr. So, and like I said, we invite anybody out there that would like to present a project of theirs, something of passion. It could be a game, it could be terrain building, miniature painting, whatever. We build this community for you. And if you reach out to us either at our email address, sitrep.podcast@gmail.com, or you can reach us through Discord. I'll tell you what, Discord has been exploding lately. So
yeah, that brings us into the third and last thing I wanted to talk about as far as, what have you been hobbying lately? Our Discord got a huge bump in the last week because of our Sunday content where we ran a war game set in the Twilight 2000 universe.
Yeah.
So Twilight 2000 is a great role-playing setting. Originally, it came out from GDW like back in 1984, I think it was. It's a fourth edition has now come out. Somebody new has the license. The name of the company escapes me at
Freestyle, I believe it is.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
For the save. I appreciate the assist. So I mean, I have a lot of the old books still on PDF from God knows when. So we pretty much just took, hey, I think there's actually something like this in the original Twilight 2000 publications, called like Last Battle or something like that, where it basically gives you a chance to almost like a prequel, because Twilight 2000 is sort of post-apocalyptic, or in the course of the apocalypse. Future role-playing, 2000 was the future back then. Here we kind of did, okay, we're going to back up the like maybe 1 week or maybe even like 1 day or even 12 hours before what is traditionally the beginning of a Twilight 2000 game.
Yep.
And traditionally, that's when you're with 5th U.S. Infantry Mechanized in, I think it's south central Poland, a town called Kalitz. There's been a big NATO offensive, sort of a last gasp offensive into, deeper into Poland. It was going towards Lodz, and it didn't work, and, chaos ensues. I won't go over the whole Twilight 2000 setting for like a third time, but fans of the setting definitely know what I'm talking about already. So we took pretty much that last big battle where 5th U.S. Infantry Mechanized finally disintegrates, and we kind of did a part of that last engagement. And sure enough, I had the Americans and the Canadians, and I kind of disintegrated. So we were historically accurate, air quotes, in that game. Holy crap, I got the hell beat out of me. I've been watching the playthroughs, and I saw the two main mistakes I made. One of them I kind of made like knowingly. We were kind of in a Mexican standoff, and I was like, this is going to be a boring stream if someone doesn't do something. And I kind of did something silly. But then further back in the stream, I noticed another really crucial missed opportunity.
Uh-huh.
And I totally saw where I lost that game. But anyway, that opened us up to the Twilight 2000 community. We got some great contacts there through Facebook and YouTube. Joined their Discord. A bunch of them joined our Discord. And to your point, our Discord has kind of had a little bit of an extra boost in the last week, largely due to our recent Twilight 2000 themed content. So yeah, that's been great as well. So yeah, like I said at the top, it's been a hell of a week, to be sure.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of stuff going on, and Twilight 2000 is on fire right now. As typical of any game that has come out recently, and this was a Kickstarter, and so it's bringing back memories for those people that were around for the original version, and it's piqued the interest of people who have heard of it or may not, have heard through it the rumor mill. But so it's nice to see this going on here. So, Jim, I'm trying to send you over a file with all the updated PDFs. So I'll get that to you here soon. So you have the updated version. So,
and for people who maybe have heard, because it's been in the news, it's kind of been churning around out there in the internet universe. It's one of the better role-playing settings from the 1980s. I was kind of happy when it came out to learn that, because it came out in 1984. It is set in the dark, murky, unknowable future of 2000. Chuckle. And now in 2021, they came out with it again when obviously 2000 is hell. We probably have members of our community who weren't around in 2000.
Right.
Pre 9/11, pre War on Terror, the world was totally different back then. And, like what the world was going to be like. So I was like, okay, are they going to set it? Is it now like Twilight 2040? Or is it, when I first heard about this re-release? And no, they kept the original setting mostly. And they kept, the original date. And now it's presented more like alternate history. That's the first sort of asterisk there. And then the second one is, I think it was a great setting back in the day that was a little, people might disagree, but was a little let down by its system. Frank Chadwick, I think, designed most of it. Frank Chadwick was actually he's one of the greatest war game designers that's ever been. He's like, Jim Dunnigan's, illegitimate cousin or something. I mean, he's just, he wrote the first Battle series, the original Team Yankee game back in 1988. All the whole Assault series, which was just absolutely phenomenal. That's Assault, that's Boots and Saddles for Air Cav, Bundeswehr, NATO, British Army of the Rhine, First Line of Defense. Yeah, tons and tons of great, games back in the 80s. big, hardcore, chunky, detail, crunchy kind of games. That's great for a war game. I'm not 100% sure that same design approach translates into role-playing games that are supposed to be a little bit more narrative-based. That's just maybe a matter of personal opinion. But from what people were telling me, I got a lot of friends who already have their Kickstarters, either physically or they have the PDFs. There's some people on a shout out to Tuffy Ears and the OTT community. She's got a great, almost like an unboxing project where she, here's what you get in the box, folks. So, great components. The whole system seems like it's been greatly streamlined and sort of smoothed out. There's custom dice in there to help out, because custom dice tends to alleviate the need for tables and charts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, they went away to. A lot of games back then have that sort of, I don't want to say stigma, but that, BattleTech, Assault, Renegade Legions, the later editions of Panzer Leader, they have like the, Advanced Squad Leader is a huge example. That's a game that was almost a victim of its own success. It's just module after module after update after expansion after, oh my God, there's literally 100 rule books and there's no fluff, there's no pictures. It's all triple column text and charts.
Yeah.
Break out the magnifying glass and a bottle of aspirin. From what I can tell, the new re-release is not like that at all. They definitely said, okay, it's 2021. We got to come up with a role-playing system that's designed as a role-playing system. And it's a little bit more supportive of a more narrative play style, it seems.
Yeah. So, yeah, we'll be looking forward to that. Hopefully we can do something with Twilight 2000. I know a lot of people are interested in that, and maybe we can run an online campaign or something, but we'll see. We've got a lot of projects in the works. Speaking of projects in the works, so right now you may have watched our video from last Saturday night, live hobby night. We worked on our Rourke's Drift project. Marty put together the hospital terrain piece from the set, and I was working on some of the miniatures that I printed. And we discovered that the standing British soldiers that we printed, the scale is so off we can't even get by with what we have, so we're going to have to reprint all 80 or so of those guys, which brings about a piece of news. So Chris, our social guy from Walkabout Games, Modern Mini 3D, he kind of runs our Facebook page and puts out some social podcastings. Posted on the page this morning, I believe it was, or last night, Dang Warlord is pushing out a whole new setup of Zulu War stuff. It's like, did they hear me or something? And all of a sudden, hey, let's do this, because they're putting out a whole new other British starter army and a Zulu warrior starter army. They're up for pre-order right now. I don't know if we have an actual release date, but like the British army is, I believe, is 80 miniatures. And I'm like, seriously? You couldn't have said this a few weeks back. Yeah. I mean, literally.
I always love it when that kind of thing happens. And then people are like, okay, did you have like inside information that you weren't sharing before? Or are these people actually listening to you?
Right.
When Battlefront re-released Fate of a Nation, and like the first two things in Fate of a Nation were like the exact two things I've been wailing and whinging and crying and bitching about for the past 4 years. They were like, oh my God, is Oriskany like, not being completely honest with us, or did he just get a new job, or is he Nostradamus? What's going on over there? No, man, just sometimes you get lucky. Something that you've been talking about or asking about, and then the game company, comes out with that exact same thing, like right around the corner.
Yeah, so I'm on the webpage, and it's 60 plastic British infantry, just like the first set I painted, and 20 of the plastic Natal native contingent. So I'm like, seriously, dudes, it's so. I think they're doing it in, relation to the anniversary of Rourke's Drift in Isla Wanda, in January.
Right.
So I mean, the timing is suspect, but I mean, it just frustrated me. Hey, to our friend John over there at Warlord, or any of them over there at Warlord, how about a help out a guy and shout out and saying, hey, I see you're going to start this project. We got this going on. How can we help you? Oh, no. So
it's either is $1 or it's just Christmas.
Right. So
or both.
But yeah, if you're interested in getting some really decent miniatures, I mean, they have the entire range. They're bringing back the battle set, which is, the terrain set. They're bringing back the Horns of Buffalo set, which is everything set I ordered. They got the line infantry. I mean, everything is back. And the line infantry, I believe, are Perry miniatures, if I'm not mistaken. But regardless, damn it, you had to go and do it, didn't you? So, which is good. It'll get more people playing, I hope. So, I'm happy to see it. It's just, of course, it happens now. So, but yeah, we worked on that. So we got to print up some more guys because I don't think these guys will be released in time for our deadline. So we'll be working on those, and I'm going to build the next building and stuff. So I'll be working on that this weekend and during the week, and then next weekend, which is Christmas weekend. I plan on taking some time since we're kind of celebrating stuff this weekend. My dad and Dawn's dad are coming over Saturday, but that leaves us the rest of the weekend to kind of do stuff. So that's my plan. I'm going to get a lot of the stuff built and primed and then over the next week. So all we're doing is finishing up detailing and going from there. I'm probably going to put a video up on how to do the teddy bear fur thatched roof, just for those people who might be curious about that. So we'll be working on that. Whew, Jim.
So what went wrong with the scale? Are they too big or too small?
Too small. They almost look like 20 mil.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, wow, that's kind of strange.
Yeah. So, I noticed that when I did the kneeling British soldiers, that it looked the same way. And I had to scale up by like 125% to get them in the right scale. I don't know what it is, if something in the translation when you're building the file or whatever. So, and I thought I had upscaled them, but I guess I didn't. So then when Marty printed them, he had nothing to compare it to. So,
right.
He just thought everything was hunky-dory and just printed up the 80 or 90 guys we had. So we'll have to reprint them. So that's okay. So if anybody out there is looking for some 20 millimeter standing British from 1879, let us know. I'll be happy to send you about 80 guys. They're all cleaned up. All you got to do is base them and prime them and paint them. I'd be happy to send them out to somebody. So if you're looking for 20 mils, let me know. So, all right. Jim, big announcement this week for the Sit Rep podcast and for you especially. Would you like to highlight that, sir?
Okay. So the fact that this project has been in the works is not going to come as a huge surprise. I've been sort of hinting and hedging around the edges of it for the better part of 2021. I wasn't 100% sure like what I was allowed to say or how much of it we were allowed to talk about, at what time, but it is finally out. The official announcement went out, I think, on the 14th of December, and that is for the PC release of Valor and Victory. The new Eastern Front expansion is now kicking off its beta testing, and it's been announced for a late February release of 2022. And why that's especially important to us here on the SitRep podcast is because what we've been able to do is design the scenario pack that's coming with the Stalingrad DLC.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I designed 12 historically, for Valor and Victory, 12 historically accurate or historically themed scenarios on maps, often drawn from aerial photographs of the actual battle sites. Obviously, this Battle of Stalingrad was a gigantic event. We could have had 100 scenarios if we had, enough time and money and, so on to develop them all. But as far as historical opportunity, we had there could have been 1,000. But, we had to pick 12. So we picked, 12, based on what we knew about the battle overall, we picked 12, key points, 12 turning points, and design scenarios around those. And we were actually mentioned in the announcement on the 14th of December. SitRep Podcast has sort of made it to the big time. We're now part of an actual, actual industry, global industry release. And it was great.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think it's coming with the actual Eastern Front expansion. I think it's going to be released as DLC. But the DLC is their actual phrase was the DLC is almost as large as the base game.
Nice.
It literally took the bulk of 2021. It was from May. The beginning of May, I was working on it during my birthday in the hotel. It was until October, like late October. So pretty much the whole middle of 2021 was sunk into this project. Designing the maps was the biggest part. Historical research, of course, was also a big part. The counters, not so much, because it's made to plug into the pre-existing Valor and Victory game, originally presented as a board game by Barry Doyle, and now Lance Craner is working with Matrix War Games, Yobo War Games, and Slytherin for the release. Like the original one, you're gonna be able to buy it if you want and download it. You can play it through Steam, I believe. And so if you want to play some scenarios in Valor and Victory designed by a member of the community, keep an eye out for it at the end of February.
That's exciting news, and big thank you to you for working on that. I know between that and your gaming content for the podcast, it pretty much ate up every free moment you have. So nice work and helping get our name out there to the bigger gaming community. So
Stalingrad and SitRep were my hobby in 2021.
Yeah,
there wasn't a whole lot else going on. But great project, and again, just not that we're going to quit our job or change careers or anything like that.
We're not,
but it would be nice. Right. But any little thing that you can do to sort of contribute back, especially for a game like Valor and Victory. I've waxed lyrical on this 100 times before, so I won't get into it. But when one of the better war games to be released, better and more accessible war games to be released in the last 15 or 20 years is more or less given to the community for free because of the developers' just love of the game, love of the community, and love of wargaming in general, is really really kind of awesome. And that was the original print and play release. Now they're coming out with it on PC. Of course, the PC title you have to purchase, although the price is very, very reasonable. I think the original one was $20, something like that. Yeah. Do you remember?
It was $20-$25. It was not expensive at all.
And it comes with a ton of scenarios, the ability to design and modify your own scenarios. It's got replayability value, all the way to Hanoi and back. Don't even worry about it. You're not going to get bored of this game quickly. The original release did have only the basic features. There was no off-board artillery, no snipers, no Valorous units, things like that. This new Stalingrad release, when I was designing the scenarios, I was talking to the developers, and I was like, okay, what do I not include in my scenarios? Because, what are you guys not going to have in the system? He's like, we're going to have everything. So if it appears in a Valor and Victory, the original Valor and Victory standard D-Day +1 edition rules, put it in there. So we put it in there. We've got snipers. We've got offboard. You have to have snipers in Stalingrad.
Yeah.
Literally. But we have snipers. We found the original division and regiment that Vasily Zaitsev was actually in, not the one that he was in the movie.
That's a great movie, man.
No, it's not. It's a horrible movie. And I'm sorry.
We should have a show just dedicated to movies that I like and that you will bash me for, because they're not.
I don't bash. No, see, people always think that. They think because I like a movie, they don't. They like a movie that I don't like them. I'm like, no, I'm not bashing you.
I'm not, and you're not bashing me. I mean, the movie as far as content and historical accuracy. I'm not saying you bash the person. I'm just saying, because I'll be honest, watch Eric. Okay, everybody get your popcorn out and your beer ready. Ready for this one? Jim, I like the movie The Patriot.
Oh, my God.
I don't say it's historically accurate. I just like what it does to make me feel like, yeah, I'm going to go out and kick some enemy ass. It stirs the emotions.
That one scene where he returns to the column and he's got his son's flag.
Yeah.
And like the sun is rising behind him, and I'm like, oh my God. This is literally like America porn as presented by a German director and an Australian actor. I don't know why it works, but somehow it works. Is it even close to correct? Oh my God. They literally forget how many years are in the American Revolution.
Yeah.
They show the signing of the Declaration of Independence in 1776, then hard cut to the fall of Charleston in 1780, and there's a voiceover where Gabriel is writing a letter to his dad, and he's like, it's been a hard 2 years. I'm like, dude, 1780 minus 1776 is 4 years. I mean, just stupid, glaring errors. They actually got taken to court. They had to change the name of one of the characters in there.
The bad guy. His family. Yeah. His family said they displayed him as not true to himself. So.
And that's bigger than the movie. That movie. The real life person they're talking about there is a lieutenant colonel, actually, named Beresford Tarleton. He commanded what was called the Tory Legion and blah, 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 made up of regiments of 16th and 17th Dragoons plus American Loyalists. It was a big cavalry unit that was mixed up in some very, very nasty atrocities. The Waxhaws Massacre, to start with. Whether or not they ever herded an entire village into a church, surrounded it and set it on fire, Germans in Belarus style. No, dude, that not even close. What questionable things that unit did do was much more battlefield related, as far as people who were trying to surrender, and then somebody shot at one of the British officers and knocked him out of the saddle, and then everyone's yelling for everyone else to cease fire and stay arms, but someone already got bayoneted and it spun out of control. There are different versions of the Waxhaws Massacre, but that's where Beresford Tarleton gets that reputation from. During the war, they did call him the Butcher Tarleton. You'll have British historians that don't see it that way, and the American historians who see it the other way, and so on and so forth. But then in the movie, they just the Jason Isaacs character. I mean, Jason Isaacs is a great actor.
Yeah, yes.
He just goes absolutely off the friggin' wall. I mean, the writer and the director, and they just go absolutely off the charts with him. They turned him into the worst guy since Heinrich Himmler. I mean, he just absolutely goes nuts. And the family of Beresford Tarleton actually, from what I understand, took him to court. He's like, no, you can't portray our family this way. It's 240 years later. Well, I don't care. We still care about this shit. They take history a little bit more seriously in Great Britain in general than I think we do here. Similar things have happened. I think Admiral Short's family was up in arms about the way his character was portrayed in various Pearl Harbor movies. I think they've been petitioning the Navy for like 70 years, and I think they finally got him. No, sorry, Admiral Kimmel and General Short. Sorry, I got the two generals mixed up there. So it happens in American history too, but when certain people get a certain reputation because something happens in history, even though it's been 80 years, 100 years, 200 years, you have to be careful with how you portray them. You have to, take care because they still have family.
Yeah.
And that family can still get, their feathers justifiably ruffled. Yeah. So that's why he's William Cavington. They changed a few letters in the name to kind of, make it not quite so bad. And then one thing that the movie kind of does do right is they, from what I've read, early drafts of the movie actually had the Mel Gibson character as Francis Marion.
Oh, really?
As what I've read. And like halfway through the screenwriting process, they actually read a couple books about Francis Marion and said, whoa. We need to change this now. Because, wow, you want to talk about a character that can, has a controversial background. And this isn't like 21st century wokeness here. I'm talking about people who have always had a problem with Francis Marion. And some of his, some facets of his character and personality.
Yeah.
So they did change that, and that's where you get this fictitious. I think it's Benjamin Martin.
Yeah.
Is his character in the movie.
Yeah, because the real Francis Marion was ruthless. He really was.
Yeah, he was ruthless to his own people, to the British. And the thing about the American Revolution in the South is it did get very nasty.
Yeah.
The American Revolution in the South was vicious. It was straight out. It wasn't really a revolution so much as a civil war. And when you got the Loyalists and the Patriots going at it, the British were almost like, "Oh my God, let's get the hell out of here! The Americans are killing each other. We don't need any part of this." Which was kind of the whole reason the British went down there, was to sort of cultivate and leverage this much stronger Loyalist presence that was in colonies or states like Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. Yeah, there was a lot of problems there between the Americans, the American colonists.
Yeah.
There were certainly Loyalists up north too, but Loyalists and Patriots up north usually didn't kill each other. And when I say kill each other, I mean in some of the most horrific ways that, some horrible, horrible stuff happened. Huge atrocities. It wasn't usually the British. It was usually American on American. And it was bad. It was pretty bad. So yeah, Francis Marion was mixed up in a lot of that. And then of course the way I won't say, he was a slave owner. George Washington was a slave owner. Thomas Jefferson was a slave owner. But this guy, on top of that, Francis Marion I'm talking about, on top of just owning slaves, the way he treated them, what he did with some of them, it's next level. Slavery's bad enough. This was just like, holy shit, man, take it down a notch.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's before he started shooting at British. It got crazy. So they pulled his name out of the movie. The big battle at the end was supposed to be the Battle of Cowpens. In fact, if you look through the credits, you'll see like Battle of Cowpens, American Revolution Officer number 1, number 2, like the extras in the background or whatever. Notice the name Cowpens is never mentioned. This is a battle in January 1781, which is good because that battle bears fuck all resemblance to Cowpens in any way. It's even worse than Braveheart and the Battle of Stirling Bridge that doesn't have a bridge. It's even worse than that. But yeah, that movie is pretty bad. It's pretty rough. It's pretty. It's well shot.
Yeah.
It's got some nice music. It's got a John Williams score. You know what? I'm going to say something nice about The Patriot. It's got a John Williams score.
Yeah.
And the John Williams score is actually pretty good.
Yeah. How did we get on this topic? You were talking about Stalingrad. Oh, the movie.
Oh yeah. Then you brought The Patriot. So this is all your fault.
All righty then.
This is what happens when Chris and Marty don't show up to the show. I have more time to talk about random topics that I should not talk so much about.
That's cool. Oh, you know it was Roland Emmerich was the director, huh?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm pretty sure it's a German director. Well, first of all, Roland Emmerich, that freaking guy. The guy who tried to ruin Godzilla. I hate him for historical reasons. He almost ruined Godzilla. Yeah, Roland Emmerich. Yeah, so a German director and an Australian actor is going to tell me about the American Revolution. Good luck with that. Pack a lunch.
Yeah, he did Day After Tomorrow, Godzilla, which was terrible, and Independence Day and The Patriot. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, Day After Tomorrow, 2012, I believe.
Yeah.
He really got into those, in the 90s and 2000s, he got into all those disaster movies.
Yeah.
World Ends Tomorrow kind of movies.
All right, well, so there's that. So, yeah, we have the DLC pack for the Battle of Stalingrad for Valor and Victory. Jim, as soon as we can get our hands on it, we definitely need to do some, game time, air time. So, take some people through some of the
word of warning: those scenarios are not easy.
Yeah.
They wanted Stalingrad scenarios. I'm like, Stalingrad was a brutal battle, right? It's going to be a brutal scenario. Yeah. So those scenarios are not for the faint of heart. That's for sure.
It's all right. It is what it is. So, yeah, that's exciting news. What else you got going on there, Jim? You got Trenton. You've been building all those buildings.
So, the Battle of Trenton, we're going to do, again, it depends. I'm going to be at my dad's house for the holidays, so we're going to be in his workshop, set it up, play it and build it or whatever. I don't know if I'm going to be able to stream it live or if I'm going to record it. If I record it, it's going to come out like in the next couple days.
Sure.
So if you don't see anything from us on the 26th of December, it's because I recorded the game, and now I'm piecing it together and editing it and so on and so forth, getting it ready for some sort of recorded release. But hopefully I can stream at least some of it. Nice. On the actual 26th. That depends on his internet and where we're setting up the table and how close the router is, and there's a whole bunch of technical stuff I can't test yet because I'm not there.
Right.
So yeah, hopefully it'll be the 26th of December, the actual anniversary of the battle, and if not, the game will definitely be played, and we'll have some video highlights that come out in the next couple days after that. So either way, before New Year's, you'll definitely see some content for the Battle of Trenton. No counters, no hexes, no virtual game, an actual 20 millimeter real life table.
Wow.
Set up with tons of terrain and so on and so forth.
Nice.
So yeah, looking forward to that.
I am as well. That'll be awesome. So, do you have any gaming going on tomorrow? Do we have a item for tomorrow?
We don't have any gaming for tomorrow, but I was going to do a stream where like I said, I have to put a wash on these sessions.
Okay.
So I'm going to set up all those buildings and start to, just do a quick hobby stream.
Nice.
It'll literally just be applying wash to 72 figures, so it's not going to be an amazing, but just like a quick, happy holidays, hangout, hobby session to sort of close out our Sunday content also for 2021.
Nice. That sounds grand. So let's transition a little bit to Christmas and things that would make a wargamer's life better or more enjoyable as far as Christmas gifts and things. Some of the things. So let me start, Jim. One of the things, if you're a miniature or terrain builder type wargamer, definitely invest in an airbrush. I can't tell you how much an airbrush makes terrain and miniature painting much more enjoyable and easier. Now, a lot of people are hesitant to buy one because they just don't know about it, or you've never used one and they're like, I don't know if I can do this. Airbrushing is not hard. It takes practice. It takes muscle memory. Muscle memory is probably one of the bigger issues when it comes to airbrushes. And what is the biggest obstacle for anybody who uses an airbrush? It's cleaning the airbrush, right? Because if you don't keep your airbrushes well maintained and clean, little specks of paint start drying up and they capture more specks of paint, and then you start having clogs and sputters and things like that. So the importance is...
I was almost going to say also the compressor.
Yeah.
People often argue about, what kind of paintbrush should I buy? What kind of... you also have to buy a compressor, and the compressor is going to be just as important as the airbrush. So that might be a second sort of a gateway.
Yeah. So
but again, there's plenty of options out there. I totally agree with your advice. If you haven't bought an airbrush and you're hesitant about it, I remember I was. Don't be.
Yeah.
Shop around and go ahead.
And I was going to say, so, some people are like, well, some of these airbrushes are really expensive. Now, there are two schools of thought out there. I've heard from both sides. Some people say, well, you can buy a lesser expensive airbrush to learn. Some people say you can't do that because you could get frustrated if it doesn't work right and then get out of airbrushing altogether. What I have found is, and Chris Long and I were talking about this the other day on the live show, is that a lot of the airbrushes you find, I'm on Amazon right now looking under airbrushes, as long as it's not some cheap plastic thing, because there was a God, I can't remember that company that made a plastic one. It had it was terrible. If you find a good chrome-plated airbrush, you don't have to spend a ton of money. My preference is Iwata's. I like the Iwatas, and I'm on the Iwata page on Amazon right now. The one airbrush I use most often, and it's a workhorse, is the Revolution CR. It's a dual action. Right now they have it for $96. That's not bad. You can find airbrushes much cheaper. Like I'm looking at a Master airbrush. It's $49. And it comes with 3 different needles and spray caps. So, I mean, it may be more than what you get what you pay for. I don't disagree with that. But in the same token, even the lesser expensive, if they're chrome plated, they're polished chrome plated because that prevents the paint from sticking in it. As long as you keep it clean and you mix your ratios right, you should get good results. Are you going to get fine, thin, top of line results? Maybe not. Maybe you will. I have not used any of these brushes. You know what I should do, Jim? I should buy a couple of these different levels and do a comparison videos to show people, if you buy this one, this is how it works. Does it work okay? And review it for people out there who might be on the fence for buying an airbrush. I don't mind doing that. Because I need a couple new airbrushes as well. My Iwata is the inner barrel. The chrome is flaking off. Now, I'm going to tell you why that's happening, and that's totally my fault. I left my airbrush in simple green, 100% strength for several days because it was clogged, and I'm like, well, I'll just use simple green, and it'll clean it. Oh, it cleaned it all right. So I don't know, there's some kind of chemical reaction that happened, but don't use 100% simple green when you do that because it kind of it still works. It's sometimes just not as smooth. It tends to clog easier nowadays. But you really, I'll show, what we should do? We should do a breakdown video of how to take apart the airbrush, all the little pieces and how to clean it and all that good stuff. So, but yeah, if you're a miniature gamer, definitely invest in an airbrush set, especially if you're doing, mass quantities of miniatures. So like if you're, Civil War guy or Napoleonics, anything where you got to do a lot of miniatures, airbrushing will help because once you get your finger control down, I've been doing this with the British guys for the Zulu project, is I can do their tunics all in red, and 99% of the time I'm within the parameters, just their tunics. Then I'll do their blue pants, and I don't have any overspray. But you got to think about colors. What color should I do first? What color should I do second? Like you should do the pants first and then do, the tunics or vice versa, just because you're looking at overspray and things like that. So you got to do that. But that will help a lot. And then you can go in and with a brush and pick out the fine details like, their web gear and things like that. There's a lot of guys out there that do a lot of great airbrushing. I'm no master or expert by any means, but I can get through a nice set of guys with an airbrush, at least block coloring, and then you can use it for weathering and all kinds of things. So a good airbrush setup will save you a lot of time and frustration because there's nothing worse than sitting there with a brush and painting 100 guys, all this. So it does help. It makes things enjoyable, and there's so many uses for a good airbrush. So
a lot of people use it. A lot of people use it just for, even if it's just for priming, and even if it's just for like base coating and the initial zenithal that you sometimes put down from the top. Even if it's just for that, I mean, a lot of people. Our friend Martin Russell with the Hobby Lodge over there in the UK.
Yep.
He pretty much just uses it for, priming, basing, and then that zenithal thing. And he plays mostly skirmish games, like those low mini count games. So even if you're not into the huge battle games where you have to do like the Warlord set, that Civil War epic set that has like, 1,000 pieces to it. It's not even just for that. I definitely use it for vehicles. I do a lot more vehicles than I do infantry.
Uh-huh.
And for vehicles, you can't beat an airbrush. Absolutely cannot beat an airbrush. Because vehicles have much more broad surfaces, a lot more flat panels. And when you're trying to get just basic coverage, With a brush, forget about it. You're gonna get, number one, you're gonna be there till Christmas, literally, or should I say next Christmas? You're gonna be there forever. Number one. Number two, you're never gonna get good coverage because the paint's just not gonna stick to the miniature that well, even if you prime it.
Right.
And number three, by the time you put enough paint on there to get the coverage, you've lost a lot of your detail.
Yeah.
And then number three, I mean, you're going to spray paint it anyway because you're going to want to prime it. You're going to prime it with a spray. And if you don't have an airbrush, your only real option is like a rattle can, which I used to use. I've done a lot of my armies, and probably half my miniatures have rattle can, spray on them. And yeah, there's some problems there too. The only thing I would say, because I mean, I have a Badger. I think Badger has a lot of fans out there as far as the airbrush goes.
Uh-huh.
And then when a piece broke on my Badger, the only hose I could get was an Iwata, and then I had to get a adapter between the Iwata and the Badger because they have different whatever. So that was a little annoying. But no matter what brand you get, I would say just make sure that, in addition to your previous comments, make sure that it's a gravity-fed airbrush.
Yeah.
Where the little paint pot is up on top of your actual airbrush. So yeah, you're gonna have a lot more control. There are other kinds of airbrushes. I don't know, maybe for priming or something like that, like base coverage, they work fine. But when you're trying to do any kind of actual work, it's definitely good to stick with a gravity-fed airbrush. And you are also gonna have to buy a compressor.
Yes.
I think I paid $80 for my compressor. It's very small. It's like the size of, I don't know. It doesn't quite fit in a shoebox. So it's like two shoeboxes stacked on top of each other. Get a water trap. Well, that's it. All those features are going to come with the compressor. So if you go online and you click around, you're going to see some people who really get into this kind of stuff. They're going to be like, "Oh, I have dual water traps on my air compressor. I have the water trap on the compressor itself, and I have another one somewhere along the line. The actual air line that goes from the compressor to the base of the airbrush.
Right.
And I have this, I have that extra feature, I have all this other stuff. What pressure do you set your airbrush on? Well, it depends on what kind of work you're going to do. Like a lot of things in the hobby, there are levels of how much do you need to know, how much do you need to spend, how deep can the rabbit hole go. Don't go to a blog or the Facebook page or a website or talking to people who use airbrushes all the time and hear all this detail and all this jargon and get freaked out and say, oh my god, that's way too much to remember. These are people who use this kind of stuff all the time, like the guys who paint stuff on the side of cars, dragons and barbarians and bikini girls or whatever, and they're painting her eyelashes on there with an airbrush. Okay, well, first of all, she's like 4 feet long. Number one, they're not exactly painting miniatures, and number two, they're experts. They literally do this for a living. We're talking about hobby.
Yeah,
and you can definitely. I can't. I guess I should just wrap this up. Just say I agree with everything that you're saying. I just would go with a Badger rather than a Iwata, but that's the only thing that I would even start to diverge on.
Yeah.
But definitely take care of your airbrush. It's not that hard. It's almost like it's like taking your pistol to the range.
Yeah.
Have fun with it, but when you get home, you gotta take it apart and you gotta clean it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not gonna work for you next time.
It's funny you say that because I bought 2 Badger airbrushes when every year they have a birthday sale. So the owner of Badger, I believe his name's Ken, when it comes around to December, I think his birthday's in December, he has a sale and his age is the price of every airbrush he makes. So one year, I think it was like $56 an airbrush. No matter what the airbrush was, it was $56, which is a good deal, right? Because these are 100 plus airbrushes. I bought 2, and honestly, maybe it's operator. I have not had success with Badgers. I always seem to have problems with them flowing and everything else. One of them broke on me right after I got it. Now, that, I'm going to admit, is my fault. I assembled it incorrectly, and I got a piece stuck, and now I can't fix it. I have to totally replace that part. The second one is a Patriot, and I don't know if I've lost a part or something, but, I mean, paint just flows, just like almost runs out of it no matter what I do to adjust it. So my Iwata has just been dependable. Now, you probably had a totally different experience with your Badger, obviously, than I have had. So,
I have a Badger Renegade, and I call it the AK-47 of airbrushes. And I say it with every awareness, like every way you could apply that analogy. Is it the most precise? Is it the most well machined? Is it the most forgiving? It was my first airbrush. I didn't really know what I was doing. And I still have it, and I still use it. It doesn't work as well as it used to, but I've been using it for 4 years now. And again, this is like, when your kid wants to learn how to drive, you don't take him out there in the brand new Lexus, especially if it's like a manual transmission. There's going to be a little bit of gear grinding going on. So yeah, it was a learning process for me and my Badger. Specifically, I have a Badger Renegade. Yeah, but she still works, and I really did not treat it right. Yeah, because I didn't 100% know what I was doing. But yeah, I don't really have any problems with it. In fact, given the lack of expertise I had when I first purchased the airbrush and first started using it, I'm surprised that it works as well as it does. So the fact that your Badger broke on you or whatever is kind of surprising. And I wouldn't even call it like user error, because like I said, I was making a ton of user errors with my Badger, and it still works like a champ.
Nice. Well, like I said, I think it's whatever you work, and part of it is, sometimes I'm not the best on maintenance, and I pay for it. You definitely, airbrushes are not forgiving in some aspects if you don't clean and maintain your airbrush. They are not forgiving. They you will pay for it one way or another. So, but I've learned over the time. So maybe we'll do an airbrushing episode if people are interested in that. What brand, do you have a preferred brand of paints that you like to use, or are you pretty much whatever suits the need at the time?
People who watch my hobby streams know that I am like the world's cheapest hobby guy. I use like air. Then again, I've got a background of actual artwork. So I might be able to get more out of like basic craft store acrylics than some other people. But I just use basic stuff and whatever's available I do prime the model first so it sticks to it, and you do varnish it afterwards, so that the model, doesn't fade or the paint doesn't come off the model afterwards.
Right.
So I probably spend as much money as I save in the long run. The one thing I do stand by as far as, okay, no more apple barrel crap from Hobby Lobby or whatever. It's time to actually. No, I'm serious.
Yeah,
look at my. What kind of stuff do you actually paint with as far as actual hobby stuff? I do like my. Okay, first of all, we were just talking about airbrushes. I have Vallejo airbrush paint. So don't put terribly cheap paint through your airbrush, because that's going to be eventually a maintenance problem.
Yeah. Try
to stick with better paint, or at least thinner paint for your airbrush, and that includes a bit of a thinner. So, honestly, I sometimes get away with a couple drops of water rather than going out and buying a commercial thinner. Commercial thinner is probably better in the long run, but I do have Vallejo airbrush paint, and I do have Vallejo washes. In fact, I'll be using a lot of Vallejo wash in tomorrow's stream. So, I use, bargain basement, Michael's craft store kind of paints.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost a running joke now in our hobby streams. But when it comes to washes, I do actually go for the Vallejo. You do have to thin it a little bit of water. I guess it depends on what you're painting.
Yeah.
But Vallejo wash can be a little thick, which is a good thing. It just means it'll last longer. Just put a little bit of water into it, and go from there.
Nice. Yeah, I have pretty much the big brands for paints. I have Vallejo's, I have Army Painter, I've got Scale 75, I've got P3. That's Privateer presses. I've got GW paints. And I've discovered when I was painting the other day, if you don't shake and use your paints as often, I'm losing paints because they're just, they're starting to solidify and thicken. So what have I learned? I need to shrink down my paints. I have so many paints that there's some bottles I'll never get to, color-wise, for the type of gaming I do, and it's just a waste. So, it looks cool on the hobby table when you got this big display of all these paint bottles, but so think about what projects you can do and kind of use paints that that you're going to use more often instead of just sitting there. But I'm looking at getting the set of the Vallejo Model Air paints or Game Air, because I do prefer Vallejo. I think their paints are really nice. And for military projects, I think their colors are better, personally speaking. Army painters are nice. Don't get me wrong. I have not tried the new Army Painter Airbrush paints. I might grab a couple bottles just to do a comparison between Model Air and the Army Painter ones, just to see. But I do prefer those. Now I'll say the apple barrel paints, I use those for if I'm doing just like ground, for a large build. I'll use that just to cover the ground, for the base before I put grass and all that stuff on, just to color.
Oh yeah, for terrain you can't beat it. There's no way. I mean, if you're using like Army Painter or Citadel or some, $25 a bottle paint for terrain, I think you need to have a sit down with your financial advisor and talk about planning for your retirement or something. So absolutely, when it comes to terrain, absolutely, use the basic stuff because it's bigger, it's larger. You're gonna use a lot more of it.
Yeah. So definitely use that. And as far as primers, honestly, any good primer out there. I mean, there are the Citadel primers, the GW primers, and Vallejo makes primers that you can spray on. I tend to use rattle can primers as long as it's not a thick one that that you'll lose detail to. I tend to use some of the Rust-Oleum primers. They lay down a good coat. It's pretty even. It's durable. Paint seems to stick to it pretty well. So I do like those. And it's easy. I can go to the hardware store and buy Rust-Oleum. So
Krylon is pretty good as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes what I'll do is Krylon makes primers in different colors because Krylon can be a little thick. But what I do is I get the primer that's in the color that I'm looking for. Mm-hmm. And that way I can do my priming and my base kind of at once.
Right.
And I sort of save a layer as far as, putting too much stuff on the model or whatever. Also, I've become a big fan of just priming everything in black, no matter what I'm eventually going to color it. And then sort of using that black as like my pre-rendered shadow.
Oh, really?
And then when I'm painting, then when it's almost like once you get done with the black, you just sort of, I don't want to say you don't completely paint the model, but you paint the model and you leave a little bit of that black showing, especially on any kind of, under surfaces, like, under the helmet rim, under, in the collar, under the arms or whatever.
Right.
It almost comes with a little bit of pre-made shadow. It makes your models look a little a little bit of a 3D effect, additional 3D effect.
Nice. That's a good idea. That's a really good idea.
That's mostly in 15 mil.
Yeah.
I don't know how well that would work for larger scales. But,
okay. Well, it'd be worth a try.
And one other thing, you were mentioning Vallejo paints before. One other thing that makes Vallejo paint, at least for me, a step up from some other brands out there. I think you'll appreciate this. Vallejo just tastes better. It really does. If you're a brush slicker, like a lot of us are, and you're like, oh my God, what am I doing? But Vallejo's like, that's actually a nice after dinner flavor. I like that. No, I'm just kidding, everyone. Do not eat your paint.
Oh my God, that is hilarious. Okay, well. So what are you looking forward to as far as gaming or in the new year or, anything piquing your interest?
Well, we're definitely going to give Valor and Victory Stalingrad a try.
Oh, yeah.
I hadn't thought about Twilight 2000 in a while, but, all the interest that's been kicked up around it, especially if the system is smoothed out and streamlined, as people say.
Yeah.
You never know. That might be fun to look into in the future. I am bingo models as far as hobby goes. I have zip all, nothing.
How is that humanly possible?
I'll tell you exactly how it's possible. I stopped buying things. I stopped buying things like a year and a half ago, and I've just been working on everything since. Your pile of shame will eventually whittle down. Now, admittedly, it was never that big, but and it did take like over a year, but it does eventually go away if you stop buying things and keep painting the stuff you have. And I wasn't even working on models all the time. Like I said, most of 2021 was in, hex and counter projects like Valor and Victory.
Right.
It does eventually go away. But, now I actually do want to start building something new. I just don't know what scale to go into, or I'm thinking 15 mil American, modern American, because I've got 15 mil Soviets out the ass. I got a huge 15 mil Soviet army now. And I've got some West Germans, but I don't have any Americans in 15.
Gotcha.
For moderns. I have a big American 15-4 for World War II. But yeah, it's like I got to find something that clicks into the miniature collections I already have. Like, I have this, but I don't have, I have Americans, but I don't have. The only 15 mil Americans I have are Desert Storm Marines, which are great. They're some of my favorite miniatures I've ever put together, but they're very specific. There's literally 100 hours of history I can really use them in.
Yeah.
So, I'm thinking about maybe some Americans in 15 mil, but yeah, 2022, I gotta buy and build a new army. I just don't know what it is yet.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, for me, it's concentrate on one project, get the project started and get it finished. That's my goal for 2022. So, like right now we're working on the Rourke's Drift. Get it done, get it up, get it played, and then move on to the next thing. I know I talk about this all the time. I do want to play a big war game. I mean, I want one of those that I can lay out on my pool table and come and play for a day, and we'll come back and play it another day. So, one of those big games. So,
like a big hex and counter campaign kind of thing.
Yeah,
that'd be cool.
Yeah. So, they're just. I'm trying to think of miniature wise. I guess you could do the, the epic battles, Napoleonics. I still have a whole bunch of Napoleonic stuff, that in 6 mil that I just kind of sitting on my shelf right now. So.
Wasn't there a whole bunch of Civil War 6 mil as well?
Yeah.
Or no, that was like 10 mil,
10
wasn't
mil.
it?
I still have all that to do. So I really need to figure out what I want to work on next. But I don't want to think about it until I get Zulu done. That's truly.
Oh yeah. Just me personally, I'm exactly the same way. I'm hobby around the house, in the office, in like my day job, whatever. I am usually not the guy that does well with, here's 20 projects, just keep them all kind of in the air. Send me a progress report every couple of weeks or whatever, and let me know how this, I'll drop something. I'm the kind of guy that's, give me 20 projects. I'm going to put them on a table. Okay, here's the first one.
Yeah.
Focus 100% of the energy and just, laser beam it out of existence quickly, because you've got 19 more projects behind it and people are going to be adding more as you go. Go to the next one, But at least for me, workflow-wise, it's always one thing at a time. At 125% intensity and, turnaround time, people on the podcast might know I'm not known as a patient man. Get one thing done, move on to the next thing. Get another thing done, move on to the next thing. This whole, we have like this basic thought cloud, bubble map of like 15 things we're working on at once. That drives me up the wall. That's that's borderline chaos. And at least for me, it feels like nothing's being done.
Yeah. And I'll admit, I'm one of those people. I'm like, oh, I got this idea. We're going to do this. And then we do this. And then, but nothing gets completed. I mean, we completed Benghazi, but, so, but I want to make sure that, when we start a project, we put our effort into it and then we go through it. So,
yeah, I mean, the first downs are great, but touchdowns win the game.
Exactly.
You got to get the ball in the end zone.
Exactly. What is that game, Jim? The big Pacific game that it's like ridiculously huge that takes forever?
I think it's Pacific War.
The Pacific War.
By Decision Games, which I don't own and I've never played, so I can't personally recommend it or not recommend it or whatever. I just I was doing some Pacific War writing and I was like, what are some options for Pacific gaming? And then I came across that in my research and I was doing some reading on it. And yeah, that thing it looks pretty huge. It looks really, it's the entire Pacific War down to, I believe it's the regiment level.
Wow.
Regiment and individual ships, and I think individual aircraft squadrons. So yeah, the box comes with like 9,000 counters.
Is that
the game costs like $500, and that's for a hex and counter game where you're basically getting paper and cardboard. $500. The map is something like they're maps. There's a library of maps that it's like 40 square feet of maps. Yeah, so, a fun little thing to bring to the pub on beer and pretzel night, kind of thing. 15 minutes later, you're done. No. This is the game where you have to put an addition on your house to set it up. It's what it looks like. But yeah, it definitely looks like a good game. I just haven't tried it personally.
Yeah, that's the kind of game, because we used to play, I think it was War and Peace, the Avalon Hill War and Peace.
Oh, yeah.
We play that, and that's one of those ones that you could theoretically, if you do a battle, a scenario in a day, but my dad and uncle used to campaign the whole thing, and just go through it, and it would take a couple days. Or War in the Pacific. That's it. War in the Pacific.
Yeah, by Decision Games.
Yeah.
It may be Pacific War or War in the Pacific.
No, War in the Pacific.
War.
Yep, War in the Pacific. I'm looking at the page right now. It's in stock. It's only $450. Yep, $450.
Yeah. Jeez, it came down a little. I think it was like $4.99 last I looked. Yeah, it looks like a really big game.
So it has 7 full-size maps, 22 inches by 34 inches, new tactical maps with nearly 338 individual islands for new ground units to fight over, 32 die-cut counter sheets, nearly 9,000 counters.
Oriskany was not lying.
No, sir. You know your war games, that's for sure. This looks too cool. I do
like the Pacific. Is it the Pacific or does it include Asia as well? That whole Burma, India, China thing, or maybe you can't tell on the site. Because sometimes, like I'll say, like Great Britain wasn't really in the Pacific War, and then people would be like, "Oh, what about?" I'm like, "Dude, that's not the Pacific. That's Asia." So I'm just curious because sometimes people sort of divide those two theaters.
Well, from the map counters, it looks like all the island hopping battles that went on. So, there's a
South Pacific, Central Pacific.
Yeah. So, because it's interesting because you have these strategic maps, and then when you do a battle in each island, there's maps just for those islands. So, like, I'm looking at Florida Island, Tulagai.
Oh, yeah.
So, and then there's Bougainville. So they have.
That was a nasty one.
Yeah, so they have all that. So, yeah.
Florida Island, that's down in the Solomons.
Yeah, I think that's the strategy map I'm looking at. So, but yeah, I will buy this. I my only issue is it's $450 is a lot for a hex encounter game. I'll be honest. But
yeah, I mean it's. Like I said, I don't own it, so I can't personally recommend it.
Right.
I just came across it, and like I mentioned it in a podcast once. I was like, "Hey, if you want to get serious," I'm like, "Ha ha ha!" Next thing I know, you're seriously talking about buying it. I'm like, "Oh my god, he's gonna buy it," and then I'm gonna feel bad if he doesn't like it or whatever. Damn it, Oriskany, you owe me $450.
No, it says it's the War in the Pacific plus extension. I'm not sure what the extension is, but
maybe it's the China, Burma, India thing, or maybe it depends on like what island hopping. Because you said, it gives you like a certain number of maps for different islands that you can fight over.
Yeah.
So you have to choose which islands. And that's half the point of a strategy game.
Yeah.
Island hopping is not about what we said this in our Pacific series on Op Center. Island hopping is not about what you attack. It's about what you don't attack. It's not attacking an island, invading an island, and then hopping over the water to the next one.
Right.
You're hopping over the next 100 islands, and you have to be very, very strategic and very circumspect in which islands are actually important and which ones can you bypass. And spoiler alert, it's not the big ones. The biggest Japanese garrisons were never attacked. Otherwise, the Pacific War would still be going on to this day. Rabaul is a big example. You thought Normandy was bad.
Yeah.
At Normandy, we crossed, the Allies crossed 100 miles of water to attack maybe 20,000 Germans with 180,000 Allied troops on day one. We had them outnumbered about 9 or 10 to 1, over 100 miles of water. If they had actually tried to invade Rabaul, the Japanese had 120,000 troops on Rabaul. So to get the same ratio, you have to do an amphibious landing that puts over 1 million people on the beach on day one.
Uh-huh.
That's absolutely impossible.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, unlike the Germans in Normandy, the Japanese had plenty of air support. The Japanese had a huge fleet there. The Germans didn't have any kind of a navy worth speaking of, especially by 1944.
Yeah.
So a lot of times people will look at, can we compare European battles versus Pacific battles? Hell no. It's night and day. And both theaters have their own, salience and valleys as far as, where the battles were hard, where they were important, where they were not so important, where we could have done without or whatever. And I bring all that up only because in a big strategic Pacific game, the most important decisions you're going to have to make, and some of the biggest mistakes that were made, costly mistakes that cost literally hundreds of thousands of lives, American, Japanese, and civilian. We never should have invaded the Philippines. I don't care what MacArthur says. He wants this little press event. I have returned. Piss off, dude. Your personal promise does not dictate American policy. And that cost the lives of, upwards of 1 million Filipino civilians. I mean, we didn't have to do that. And never did take them, not until the end of the war when Japan surrendered anyway. But those are the kind of decisions that you have to make in a big game like, Pacific War or War in the Pacific. And it sounds like it gives you plenty of options. The problem, or not say the problem, but the only potential pitfall I see is, what if you want to attack an island that they don't give you a map for? If that even makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Totally makes sense.
Like, what if you want to play Nimitz's strategy instead of MacArthur's strategy? Nimitz wanted to go into Formosa instead of the Philippines. They might give you maps for the Philippines. I don't know if they give you a map of Formosa in there, we can actually explore that other option. Yeah,
it's interesting to think about. I was looking at the extension that comes with that set, and what it does is makes it hypothetical if they did not drop the bombs, and you went into the remainder 45 and 46 and brought in the units that were scheduled to appear after the end of the Japanese campaign. The Pacific War.
You're talking about Operation Coronet, Operation Downfall, Operation Olympic.
Yep.
The invasion of Japan itself.
Yeah, which is kind of hits home for me because my grandpa was on a ship to do the invasion of Japan.
So was mine.
And
honestly,
he said, thankfully, the bomb dropped and they didn't do it. So, but yeah,
I often kind of I'll probably be saying it this next week at Christmas. That the fact that our entire family is even here is thanks to the atomic bombs, because my father's father, the original James Johnson, was a PFC in the Army at the time. Not only was he had literally just been drafted, so he was one of the newer guys. So So those are the guys that were going to send in first, rather than a lot of the guys that were being sent over from ETO or other theaters.
Yeah.
And not only that, but he was being trained as a battlefield medic, and Japanese snipers were trained to hit American medics first. So the statistical odds that he was going to be landed either there was a 2-stage landing. The first one was on Kyushu. The second stage was going to be on the actual Tokyo plane. Operation Coronet, Operation Olympic, and then both were kind of put together into Operation Downfall. October 30th to November 1st, 1945, and then the big invasion of Tokyo plane was going to take place at the end of March 1946. And God only knows how long it would have taken. Also, the Soviets were supposed to get involved. That was the reason the Soviets went into Manchuria in August of 45 and the Sakhalin Islands in also at the end of 45, is that they were going to invade northern Japan to help us out. That was part of the reason FDR sort of gave away as much as he did at Yalta. A lot of times Roosevelt gets a lot of flack for making a lot of concessions to Stalin. He was desperate to get Stalin, number one, into the United Nations, and number two, into the invasion of Japan. Because that was February of 45. They didn't know if the bomb was going to work. And we didn't want to go into Japan alone because the casualties and the fighting was just going to be absolutely astronomical. But yeah, as far as like what the atomic bomb probably saved, the tens of millions of Japanese lives those bombs saved, I know that sounds crazy, is nuts.
Yeah.
And another thing it probably saved is you would have had a North and South Japan the way you had a North and South Korea, North and South Vietnam, East and West Germany.
Mm-hmm.
You would have had a divided, you had a communist part of Japan. So that whole Japanese economic miracle that took place in the 60s and 70s, that shit never happens. And again, there's probably 10 to 15 million further Japanese war dead, almost all civilians, flushed down the toilet if, people actually have to land. Operation Downfall, the plans have been declassified. We were going in there with full-bore chemical weapons. We weren't even playing around. We were going to gas the hell out of those people with stuff that even the Germans never used in Russia.
Really?
Yeah. I can't remember the name of the actual operation. It begins with a G. I'll have to look that up. It's like Operation... I can't remember the name of it. But yeah, like full-scale... I'm not talking about like tear gas. I'm talking about like lethal nerve agent or what they had at the time, mustard gas and all that stuff. We were going to gas the hell out of those beaches. Because, the stuff that the American Army and Marines had run across up to that point in other Japanese-held islands, not even Japanese home islands, was just insane. Not only from the military, but from the civilians as well. It's crazy. And to sort of extrapolate the size of those battles to the size of Japan and the number of people that were in Japan, and then to sort of add a little bit to that, just as you're literally defending your home now and not some distant colony of Japan, the numbers that were coming out of Operation Downfall projected were mind-staggering. America lost 406,000 war dead in World War II. That's the whole shooting match. That's from Kesserine Pass to, VJ Day. Mm-hmm. That's the whole thing. Both sides of the world or whatever. Downfall was going to take anywhere from another 500,000 to over 1 million.
Yeah.
So basically triple everything that we lost in World War II, just to take the Japanese home islands. And even then, we wouldn't have taken the whole thing. We had to give away half of it to the Soviets. So, yeah, it may not be the most popular opinion, but what those atomic bombs wound up doing to sort of, wrap that war up quickly, I don't think can be overstated.
Yeah. That's very true. Very true. Sometimes.
And on top of that, again, statistically speaking, my grandfather almost certainly would have died. Yeah. And there's no grandfather. There's no, Daddy Oriskany. Without Daddy Oriskany, there's no, Mama Oriskany's baby boy. There's no Oriskany Jim. So there's the real tragedy that you want to avoid.
That's right. It's amazing when you think about it. So, yeah. So you're off to see your family for Christmas. That's good. You can spend time with Dad.
We're gonna hang around. We have a small event later on tonight. We're gonna align the house to gaming and hobby tomorrow. Run a little bit of a stream tomorrow, and then we drive up there on Wednesday.
Nice.
And then I'm gonna build a table. I've got all the pieces built for it, but I actually have to put together the actual plywood and the actual table.
Sure.
Up there in my dad's workshop. Dad's got a great workshop. He's got awesome lighting. That's the kind of reason I wanted to run a game, at his place one of these days. Because there's only so much I can do on my dining room table.
Yeah.
He's got a huge, works. People on the site have seen, his workshop. It's amazing.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Those are my plans for the holidays. How about yourself?
Well, tonight is Friends Before Christmas. So Marty and Chris and Co. are coming over for dinner tonight. Tomorrow I'm going to go see my niece. She's at my dad's house. She just came back from deployment. She's in the Navy. She's an aircraft crewman survival technician or whatever it is. So she works on a carrier. So she just came back from her first deployment. So she's home. So we'll see her tomorrow. And then Christmas, Dawn's dad's coming over for the Christmas weekend, and then my dad's going to come over Christmas Day, and we'll do a little bit with them, and then just me time, So work on some hobbying. I have literally torn apart my hobby room to redo. I can't believe how much crap accumulates in this room. So I've redone the podcasting corner with the computer. I now have a big old 50-inch screen for my computer, so I can multitask easily. And then my flight computer, I'll redo that. And then I had to redo my Commodore area. So, and then I'll work on my painting. I'm definitely going to get a new compressor. I have an Iwata Ninja, that little tiny box thing, and it's done me well for the last 7-8 years, but I think it's starting to putter out. I'm not getting consistent pressure, so I have to get a new compressor, and I might as well get a new airbrush while I'm at it. So maybe I'll put a video together on some comparisons and things like that. But that's pretty much what I've got going on. And like I said, I want to play a big war game. So, but I want to get Rourke's Drift done first, and then look to our next project after that. So anybody out there that has any ideas or items that you would like to see us tackle or talk about or look into, please let us know. You can comment in our Facebook page, on our YouTube videos, email us, Discord us. You will find us on Discord. And then join us for our programming. This is the last show of 2021, Season 6. When we come back after the new year, we'll start Season 7. So I can't believe it's already going to be Season 7. So it's very exciting. And we'll go from there. So January will pretty much take up Rourke's Drift. And then we have to look forward from there for our next project. Our Butter Bar to 4-star campaign, we're going to kind of put on hold as we kind of realign projects because we like these historical theme months. Now, I don't think we're going to do every month as a theme month because it takes a couple months to build up a project. If we were doing this full time, we could possibly get away with doing a theme every month. But, between real jobs and everything, it may be like an every other month, like we do try and do like 4 to 6 projects a year. I mean, does that seem realistic to you, Jim? So
yeah, or we would have to set up like an actual team plan that everyone could like actually commit to,
right?
And it would be like, okay, we're going to start off with 2022. Okay, Rourke's Drift is great, but then we're going to start a month for every historical project starting in June or whatever, and we would spend like we'd start like January to May building up like the first 3 or 4 projects or whatever. So we'd always have to have like a bit of a lead time.
Yes.
If we wanted to do every single month. And yeah, some months are easier to do than others. And some months are definitely a lot more like, good God, what things can you pack into June?
There's a few.
Everything from Waterloo to Midway to D-Day to Barbarossa to Bagration to back again, Saipan, everything happens in June.
Yeah.
February, there's a few I can think of, but not that many. So, yeah, it gets a little bit tougher. Depends on the month.
Yeah. So, yeah, especially as you go back in time in more temperate climates, a lot of armies stopped fighting in the winter, in the dead of winter, So Napoleon didn't learn that lesson, and Hitler didn't learn that lesson, but others did not fight in the winter. And others took advantage of it, hence the Revolutionary War.
Napoleon didn't really fight in the winter. He had Moscow before the snows. He just made up his mind. The Russians pretty much burned it down, so he couldn't stay there, and then he had to walk back in winter, and that's when everything kind of went pear-shaped.
Yeah. So, all right, guys, we want to wish you a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, or Happy Holidays if you celebrate another festive holiday this time of year. This has been a tremendous year, very challenging year with everything going on in the world. But we hope we've given you a little bit of escapism and enjoyment over the past year. And without you guys out there, we could not do what we do. So the help I'm asking for is very simple. Make sure you thumbs up this video or podcast on YouTube, because the algorithm based on likes. So the more people that give us a thumbs up, the more it gets out in front of people who may not know about us. Share this video or a podcast. We are on Amazon Music. We're on Spotify. We're on everything now. Any platform that does podcasting broadcasts, we are on. So no matter what format you listen to, we are on. So we're across all the spectrum. Like and subscribe if you haven't already to our YouTube channel. Again, we're racing to 1,000. Once we hit 1,000, things start picking up a little bit more. So we've got to get there. We've really climbed this week, and we appreciate everybody who's joined recently. Also, we're looking for those other contributors like Piotr. So if you are interested in presenting or have an idea for an article or something, please let us know. You can check us out at our webpage, thesitreppodcast.com, or reach out to us at our email address, sitrep.podcast@gmail.com. And we'll get back to you. And we're looking forward to having guests on the show in the coming year. We're going to start planning out some guests and things like that. So, and I do think that Jim and I are going to have a movie review show at some point for historical reviews. So,
yeah, I keep meaning to get back to those. I have a few, because our Battle of Britain one was pretty successful.
Yeah.
And I've got a few more lined up in the queue, or at least, ideas for them all.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do too many World War II ones in a row.
Uh-huh.
And, again, at least at first, I wanted to do some more somewhat positive reviews.
Right.
So there's a lot of great war movies that are more modern that are actually pretty good.
Yeah.
There's literally 20 of them. Yeah, it's just, I got to sit down and get re-familiar with the movie again and get refreshed and, additionally boned up on the history behind the movie.
Yeah.
So that I have some inkling what I'm talking about.
Most definitely. And I'll be coming out with a rule book review of Black Powder Red Earth here soon. I've gotten the book. I've had a chance to skim through it. I'm going to do an in-depth read over the next week or so, and then we'll put out a review on that one. All right, guys. Jim, any final thoughts as we close out this season?
Happy holidays. Congratulations on making it through 2021. And hopefully 2022 will be a little bit better.
Yes, we definitely think so. So this is Bill for Jim for the SitRep podcast and the rest of the team. We'll wish you happy holidays and say we'll see you in the next year. Take care.
You have been listening to the SitRep podcast. We hope you have enjoyed the show. Make sure you like and subscribe to all of our channels on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and Discord. Remember to join us every other weekend for a new episode of the podcast, and don't forget our other programming on Wednesdays and Sundays. Thanks for listening.